let's talk about what happened this patch, because a lot of things changed, not only champion-wise, but also system-wise. And that's pretty big to talk about. So, since I'm planning to do a video about it, so might as well just utilize this as it is, as a base for it. So, by order, what most important happened here was jungle changes. Some items and some champions did get very big changes. I'll discuss them normally like I usually do, but the jungle changes, we're gonna read them all, and then at the end I'll give a somewhat introduction to what they actually mean for each for the average player, more or less. So start off, Akshan's bonus movement speed on Q got decreased in the early stages, and then when it's maxed out, it'll be back to normal. This will influentiate the early game of Akshan for sure, although not as much as you might imagine. So he will still be just as strong as he was. Even his E got a little bit of a damage nerf, which will be felt, but he's still, in the matchups that he's good, he's really good. So don't worry too much about it. It'll still do pretty well. Bel'Veth. Finally, they decided to tackle Bel'Veth in the sense of, like, she was released with the idea of being more of a scaling champion that had a lot of things in her toolkit. But what ended up happening was, as the game developed and as people played Bel'Veth, they realized that the best way to play her is just for early game aggression and overpowering, and then if you scale, you scale, and if you don't, you already win the game because you're so overpowered already once you get Herald. Since you have so many dashes, you're really, like, powerful at the early stages of the game if you get on top of someone. So the idea that they're giving it here is they want to lower the power that she has in the early game, and for that they lowered their passive attack speed, and they lowered the damage reduction that her E gives, so she doesn't feel like an absolute tank by just clicking a button. So now there's a little bit more counterplay and a little bit more interaction between her and the opponents. Her ultimate got a little bit of a change to her form. She's not going to really feel this before 11, but before 11, we need to take advantage of this really hard. Still, don't give her heralds, don't give her dragons, play for objectives. That's the way to counter Bel'Veth the best. But this will make it so if she does get a herald or a dragon, by circumstance, she won't feel as overpowering as she felt before. Galio changes. They reduced the cooldown on his W, as long as you put points into it, up down to 14 seconds. And the out of combat shield also got lowered, and it scales outside of his abilities. So at level 11, it will only be 8 seconds instead of 12. This is neat, but underwhelming. It really doesn't do much for him at all. Like, that's not where his issues lie on. So although it's a nice change, it's positive, it won't really affect him too much. They are trying to bring him back into the game, but so far the meta and the conditions are not quite there yet, but they're close, and I think the jungle changes will help him a bit, but he's still not quite there. Okay, Jinx, health growth increased, that's good, she's going to be a bit more tanky. Stacks now stack. Okay, so the passive now stacks if you kill a secondary enemy, which is really good. And the ultimate got a huge buff in its damage. Alright. I feel like this alongside the changes to the jungle, I think this could help Jinx flourish in a new style of meta, more centered around AD carries and hyperskillers again. And this is a really good change for her. I think this will help her a ton, especially. Okay, so we're gonna talk about K'Sante. I'm not gonna go too into depth of what they did to K'Sante. If you're a K'Sante main, you already know what they did. And for those who don't play K'Sante, the gist of it is he's gonna be less tanky, and deal less damage in the early game, and then the later it goes into the game, he's gonna be even stronger than he was before. I do feel quite sad that some mechanics of his W were removed, like the 0.65 seconds now being mandatory of a channel time for W. But I do think that the change both to damage and to the damage reduction is very positive for him. I think now will start being played more as a true tank that then scales into an unstoppable fighter. So if you get into him on like 2-3 items, he is like one of the best champions in the game right now. It's sad that some skill expression got removed due to these nerfs and buffs, but I think K'Sante needed to have a weak point in the game. He was really strong early, he was really strong mid, and he was extremely strong late game. So making it so he's much weaker early, but stronger mid and late, I think is the correct idea to go for K'Sante. I do have to say though, I believe that for those who don't play K'Sante, remember just information about two big informations about him. If he has 3 Qs, he can't Q flash anymore, so you won't be caught off guard as much. You can now react properly to it. He can't flash W anymore as well, so you can't be knocked back out of nowhere. And if he has his third Q and ults, he loses the third Q. It goes back to 0. So those are like the biggest things you guys have to worry about if you don't play K'Sante. And if you play K'Sante, test him out, give it some time, you'll adjust to it, and I think you'll feel like he's much better than he was before. He won't be as skill expressive, but is still really good. Kai'Sa's armor got reduced. This is good, more punishable in lane. She was being way too safe and she has way too many variants. I think this is a pace in the right direction, keeps her idea of being so versatile open, but while also nerfing her in a way that actually is tangible. Okay, Milio. Passive now counts as Milio's damage. Okay, that's good for some items like Echoes of Elia. E cooldown got reduced by a second, that's pretty good, and the shield got increased at every level, which is also really good. Ult also got a big AP scaling increase, so this is amazing for Milio. I think he's been suffering a lot because of the how the meta is, but I do feel like a lot of this is due to how chaotic the meta is right now, but I still think he's one of like the best supports in the game, like by far. So Morgana got changed, her double damage got increased by AP, and now deals more damage to monsters. Remember, this was a buff that before made it so everyone was gonna play Morgana jungle. I feel like with these changes, she's really back for that. Especially the bonus movement speed on ultimate now function, not only having been increased by 5% in at all ranks, and now when you ult, you move in all directions 10% up to 60% faster, which is amazing. The stun duration also being increased depending on your ranked ultimate is amazing for jungle Morgana as well. You can do something like a Rod of Ages or a semi-hybrid damage build to still be tanky but take advantage of the movement speed. So I really think that this is going to be really strong. And the ult also got a damage buff, so yeah, like jungle Morgana is completely back. I don't think she's gonna flourish as a support, but definitely as a jungler. Base health of Quinn got decreased, the base movement speed got decreased, but now she has more attack damage. I think this is pretty good. It's a trade-off, right? She's gonna do more damage and be more oppressive, but if she gets caught, she's gonna die much easier. So I think it's a pretty good adjustment to her. I wouldn't say it's a buff or a nerf, it's an adjustment. Zed's W got much more cooldown, increased it, so he can't do what he was doing before with going full CTR and having his W on 5-second cooldown. That's really good. Zig's hitbox being bigger is also really good. I think this will open up a good avenue for him to go bot again, especially with the matchups that are currently being played. Blighting Jewel got buffed, lower cost. I think it feels really nice. I still think it's not gonna fix the problems that AP mages really have right now, but it's a step in a good direction. Having it be cheaper makes it feel really nice when you go purchase it, so it doesn't feel like you're just buying a crappier, needlessly large rod. Duskblade's ability ace being reduced, that's really good. Hits a bit of the ability ace rush that's been happening for the assassins, and the damage was reduced. Fine, perfect. So this Lord Dominik's nerf from 0 to 25 to 0 to 22 is very noticeable. It's quite substantial, but it is overshadowed by how awesome the updated math is. So the idea of this is now that although you do get less damage from Lord Dominik's itself, making it so it functions before shields and lifesteal are calculated means that you basically deal more damage once you have those situations where you're with a Janna who shields you, when you have a BT. Basically what would used to happen before is the shields and the healing before the hit touched were calculated, and then it was like, oh, but Lord Dominik's gonna do this damage. So having it be the other way around makes it so Lord Dominik's will do more damage, and then by that extent help you with your lifesteal. So this is a really good buff for AD carries. And this is a very weird big buff to assassins. I don't know why they did this. I think this is just basically reverting what it was before, but I feel like this will bring back a lot of damage that I felt Riot was moving away from during this entire patch, especially with the runes. So I don't know what will happen with this item, but I think this item is going to be really strong again. So if you're playing Talon, Yas, Zed, Kiana, Kha'Zix, you go Yumus again. It's really good. Okay, so jungle changes. The smite changes are not that big. Main thing to take note of is now when you smite, you can have when you're smiting a monster, you can have your cursor a bit to the side. It will auto prioritize the monster. If you have a champion underneath your cursor, it will go to the champion. But if you're not underneath the champion, you're just like, you can just move it a bit to the side and you can smite properly the correct monster. Now it won't need to be perfectly on top of the model, which I think is a really good change. Junglers with Primal Smite no longer take 20% less damage from epic monsters with 2 or more allies nearby. This is a weird change in the sense that you'll feel this a bit because the camps will deal a bit more damage, but also later on you'll do more. It'll say that you'll do more damage to the camps, so don't worry too much about it. Main changes for everything is Blue Smite will give you less movement speed. The Green Smite will give you more shield and more shielding. But it won't give you slow resistance and tenacity, which is still a buff. And the Red Smite only applies on attacks and spells, so it can't be applied by Smite anymore. Okay, so most camps got a buff in their health pool, especially and growing into level 18 instead of just stopping at level 11, which makes it so they take a bit longer to do. You need to adjust to it a bit for most champions, but you won't feel it too hard. Health scaling also got increased, so now besides this natural bigger level, the camps itself have a bigger scaler of level. So they'll just be tankier. That's the basic gist of it. They want you to take a bit more time doing the jungle. Rift's also got this treatment where it has a bit more HP, as long as the game progresses. But in a very good twist of turns, later into the game it'll give you more XP. Now, it kind of sucks because in effect you will receive less golden experience for these scuttles compared to what you were receiving before, but and I think it will hurt a bit some level 6s in the game, but overall it's not gonna be hurting too many junglers that are currently in the meta. Craig experiences did get a buff, a true natural buff, most likely to offset the Rift Scuttle ones, so Scuttle now gives a bit less XP, but now Krugs is clearly the best camp to steal, by far. Okay, monster attack damage got decreased, so he does monsters do a little bit less damage to you, and now instead of getting flat HP, you always get 12% missing health and 20% missing mana. So you'll sustain yourself a bit better in the jungle as long as you can do camps properly. Your companion now has smaller radius and does a bit more healing, which is perfect for most junglers that like usually have a hard time in the first clear. I think this will help them quite a bit. And now your pet won't start attacking dragon randomly when you do Scuttle, which is also really good. So anti-poaching adjustment means that basically now non-junglers have a much harder time still doing jungle camps. So unless you have the jungle item, you're kind of fucked. You can't really do that camp. You can still do it, but it'll take like a lot longer than it was meant to. So this is the biggest change, I think, for junglers. What happened until this point is that what Riot wanted to basically say is that, hey, you're gonna take a bit longer doing your jungle. Dragons are a bit less effective, but the soul is a lot more effective. So you basically have two game plans: either scale until third or fourth dragon, or play for soul immediately. And what this means, in essence, is that carry junglers lost a bit of their edge in the game, because what would happen before is that they would get ahead and carry much more easily because of the downtime and how effective Drakes were to just maintain Snowball. But now, given that death timers are so small compared to what they were before, and I'll show that to you guys in later, and the essence of how the jungle camps work now in their XP and tankiness, it's a lot more likely that a lot of tank junglers would love this active change. Now, there is one thing that does kind of change this mentality, and it's this. So before, what would happen is that if you were down a level, the game would change the minions. Okay, so the best way to tell you this is like, when you were behind, minions would give more XP, basically. Now you need to be extra behind for the minions to give you the extra XP. Instead of just being one level down, now you need to be a level and a half down, which is a big increase, especially at later levels like 12 and 13. But in addition to that, more than anything, and especially for tank junglers, not only carries, is that instead of the minion experience being capped until 14 minutes, it now progressively increases until 20 minutes, and then it settles and no longer gets stuck, especially at 14 minutes. But the really big thing here is that at minute 20 you basically get as much XP as a laner would, and this is much different to how it was when it was at 14 minutes. Now it's 6 extra whole minutes where you don't get a full value of a minion. So if you're behind and you're trying to catch EXP by soaking off the wave that your allies are using, you're not gonna have that much compared to how you were doing before until minute 20, which means that if you fall behind, it's gonna hurt. Now, I don't think it's gonna hurt as it's gonna hurt a ton actually, but it will hurt a ton, especially on carry v carry matchups in the jungle. Whereas if you now play tank, it's a lot more reliable, consistent way not only of doing your camps, but then ensuring progression towards a better sustainability in the jungle. Now, I do think this kind of creates a situation where counter jungling champions really can take advantage of this. Things like Udyr, Lilia, Graves, Nidalee really enjoy this. It's an amazing change for them, especially going into tanks that might start popping up more and more. But for usual carries like Kha'Zix, Lee Sin, even Viego, it will hurt their playstyle a lot more. Some dragon stackers won't feel this too much. I think overall, for example, this is a great buff for Shyvana. More health means her attacks do more damage because she is kind of treated like a tank. And then dragon stacking gain a lot more power. Although individually our dragons are weaker, the soul is much stronger than it was before, and that will give an amazing edge over most junglers. So going into this new patch, I believe like Lilia, Nidalee, Graves, Nocturne to an extent, Udyr for sure, are gonna be Kayn even, are gonna be the cream of the crop of the jungler meta. I think followed by that would be Sejuani, Zac, and Maokai. I don't think old carries or lethality builders will enjoy these changes whatsoever. The few lethality builders that maybe will enjoy this is maybe Kha'Zix and Graves, and even Kayn. But like, in the most notioned idea is like, if you're playing carry, it hopefully can build lethality, and it hopefully can go Yomus and just pressure, and that's the best they can really do. Okay, going off into the jungle, we'll do this new starting items. So now you can only buy one Doran item, so no more double Doran's Ring or Doran's Ring and Doran's Shield. Doesn't work like that. Doran's Blade getting more AD and more health means it's a better starting item, and it'll probably see a bit more play than just regular longsword 3 pots. Doran's Ring having more ability power and more health is also going to be really good. For laning phase, I feel like most of these changes is giving more HP and more sustain and more damage, as to give laners a bigger and more interactive and more punishable laning phase, because I felt like what Riot wants to move on to is less snowbally games that get influenced a lot just off of kills. So these changes will slow down a ton the pace of the game, and it will help that plays, even plays, like imagine you do a play, it goes bad, it won't be as punishing as it was before. A big winner of this is Darkseal. Darkseal being able to stack with other Doran's items is really good, especially because it in itself got a buff. So going Doran's Ring, Darkseal now is just pure better than it was before, because it's still one of the few items that kind of contradicts what Riot wants to do here with the punishment of laners. So I feel like this is a really good buff for it. Relic Shield and Steel Shoulder Guards also got buffed along with the other support items. This will feel nice in a way, but it's too little health to be truly impactful in bot lane, and it's too little AP to this for this to matter, but this is enough AD for it to matter. It's not like this 1 AD is more valuable than this 2 AP basically on reference. But I still believe that the true winners of this were Spellthief's Edge and Spectral Sickle. Sadly, not many champions can really use the Spectral Sickle, but Spellthief Edge supports like Janna, Emilio, Lulu, especially Emilio with the new burn changes. I think he takes extreme advantage of this. And given that the game is slowing down and being more forgiven to bad lanes, forgiving to mistakes in lane, I think those kinds of supports are getting a huge buff. Alright, so continuing on this trend, Waterwalking got a really nice buff, but it lost its movement speed, so things like Hecarim won't be using it as well. This is the dragon changes that we talked about, where dragons will be less effective overall, but the Dragon Soul will be much more effective at all stages of the game. Rift Herald now gives less gold when you do it, meaning that it's even better now to not move your bot lane to do Herald. So hopefully next season, if this change continues, you will stop seeing pro players just leave bot lane, lose 2 platings to do 1 Herald that gives you 100 gold. Baron Nashor also got itself increased, nothing too significant. This is the death timer changes, where now you gain up to 4 seconds in some of the instances, even 5 at level 7. Basically, you'll be less punished when you die at these timers. Third plating also gives less gold, so now if you get punished, you don't get into such a deficit. Right. Big rune adjustments. Conqueror will deal less damage, and it will give you less AD at all stages of the game. Little tempo will also give you less attack speed, very important. Electrocute's damage got increased at the later stages of the game, but only the base damage. Losing both AD and AP scaling makes it it's basically uncaring. Like it got a lot weaker, if that makes sense, basically. Dark Harvest went in the same route. They took away its AD and AP, but they took much less of its AD and AP. I do feel like Dark Harvest now, with these changes to all the runes, with that in mind, it's still a nerf. Dark Harvest got nerfed, but given how every rune got adjusted, I think Dark Harvest got away like as one of the best by far. Especially compared to like Electrocute, because before you could use Electrocute since it was such a big difference on both AP and AD, but now it's the same. So now, as long as if you scale better and you don't want to use Electrocute, going Dark Harvest is better. Arcane Comet got the same treatment. Lower damage early game, scales into a higher damage, but it lacks on AD and AP. Weirdly enough, this is good for Seminary. Before it was 15 AD and 10 AP, kind of the same syndrome that Dark Harvest had of like the damage it dealt got changed according to Electrocute, but given that all received the same decrease in for the AP and AD scaling, it means that it basically has more value than the others because it technically lost less, and the way you activate it is much different. Now proccing Comet twice, maybe not as optimal as proccing Harry 3 times, or even 4. So Harry might start being used more in poke lanes, and especially on supports who don't want to use Glacial. Fleet Footwork got the same treatment. The heal got reduced. This is going to be affecting usual Fleet Footwork builders. First Strike now has less damage. The Taste of Blood also got reduced healing, and again, same direction as the other runes. This technically still makes it more valuable of a rune than the other ones that we discussed. So maybe it's very likely that Taste of Blood will be picked up more often, but given that it's against Cheap Shot or Sudden Impact, it's a complicated. And one of the ones I feel like it got nerfed the most, Press the Attack, which now is flat 8%. Oof, this was a really big patch. And most of the things that I want to point out to is that early game now is a lot more forgiving. This allows both tanks and enchanters to play a lot more consistently, and that's the thing that was keeping them gated a lot of this time, especially now that they can, you know, effectively play without being pressured as often, because Conqueror got nerfed, Lethal Tempo got nerfed, they can't be poked as much because Electrocute, Comet got nerfed. The sustain of the enemies isn't as good because Fleet Foot got nerfed. Press the Attack is nerfed. You don't need to move the dragons because the dragons aren't really that important anymore. Plates aren't as important because they reduced the gold that was provided on them. Your items got much tankier and much better, so you'll sustain yourself a lot better. Jungle tanks appreciate most of these changes a ton. And aside from like Yumu's and Lord Dominik's, and even Lord Dominik's in of itself, most items got nerfed or are being hit quite hard. If you're playing tanks and enchanters, like, this is the patch for you. I think the biggest winners for sure are maybe not yet too visible, but I think Jinx is a clear winner. Emilio is also an amazing winner. K'Sante, great winner. Morgana's also gonna be amazing in the jungle. I think Sejuani, Zac, Maokai are gonna be amazing. I think Janna and Soraka especially is gonna be fantastic with these changes. I think Aphelios has a really good chance of coming back into the meta very effectively. Xayah still loves an hyper carry, and it plays amazingly off of everything that happened and how the game is progressing. So I do believe we're gonna go back into a bit of a more scale-oriented game, with more focus on mages and AD carries. I think there's still a true genuine place for assassins to roam and to exist, more of one-shot machines, but I think they are being punished quite severely, especially if they don't get ahead extremely hard. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video and you enjoyed the discussion of it. Let me know what you think about the changes that happened here to the game, and let me know what you believe will be the best champion coming into the next season. This patch was really big and it changed a lot of things, so I am really excited to see what everyone thinks. But that's gonna be it for me. Thank you a ton for watching my stream and watching my videos, and if you liked it, follow, subscribe, like it, do whatever you can. I'm trying to get 50 followers on Twitch, so if you could spare a little follow, really appreciate it. And I hope you guys, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.